I'm starting to become very pessimistic about the direction of what some of the leaders in college football want to do with college football. I have been very optimistic, and that is waning. And the reason is because I'm not sensing from some of these groups that they quite grasp or understand what's going on. So today I want to just kind of outline a little bit of what's going on, because the party that is not being considered in all of this is actually you, the fan, which is frustrating. And we're going to get to that because I know there's been a lot of changes in college football, and I've been a huge proponent of some of them. I've defended others. I've been optimistic about the direction and some of the guardrails that we can have and the structure that we could have in college football in the future. And that's why I've said I think it could be the dawn of the golden age of college football. And I still believe that. I do think that we're at a major point right now, and this offseason is a major point. And some of the discussions, for the first time, at least in a long time, have deteriorated some of that faith that I have in some of the entities making some of these decisions. So there was some growing news that the SEC and the Big 12 wanted to kind of change or discuss a different format to the eventual CFP. We're talking about 2026 and beyond. That was not what we talked about last week. So before we get started on what maybe is the proposed change or what they're throwing out there, I want to just go back and revisit exactly where we kind of left off last week and where are we in college football in terms of the proposal for the 2026 college football playoff. The most, I would say, optimistic or relevant proposal that we've seen is this one that you're seeing if you're watching YouTube, and I suggest you go over there just because a lot of this is tough if you're just listening on audio. You got to see it. But this is the 16-team playoff format and the options that have been bantered about up to this point, which is that the SEC and the Big Ten would get 4 automatic qualifiers, that they would each get 4 automatically. The ACC and the Big Ten would get 2 automatic qualifiers. A group of 5 would obviously get 1. And then the Notre Dame at-large spot would have 3 slots for Notre Dame and or 3 at-large spots. So that's where we left off. What's being now proposed and thrown out there by both conferences that had spring meetings last week, a growing push from the SEC and, unfortunately, in this regard, because it's totally against their interests, the Big 12, is a 5+11 model. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, again, go to YouTube and check it out, but we've got the visuals up for you. A 5+11 model is this. Each conference in the Power Four would get an automatic berth. You'd get an automatic berth for the highest ranked group of 5 champion, and then you would have 11 spots that were just totally at large, including Notre Dame. If they were to qualify, they would obviously grab one of those at-large spots, but then it would be left to what we have seen up until this point in the college football playoff, which is it would be committee-driven. Now, truth be told, when I see this and when I hear this, it makes me want to throw up. I think that this is awful for college football on so many different levels, But before we get there, I do want to kind of touch on what was said last week and done last week at each of these spring meetings. Let's start with the Big 12 and their commissioner, who I think is a really smart guy. He's done a lot of excellent things with the Big 12, Brett Yormark. I do think he's completely off the mark on this one, but this is what he said. He said, in talking to our ADs, we want to earn it on the field. He said the 5-11 might not be ideal for the conference, but it's good for college football, and it's what's fair. He would go on to say the 5-11 might not be ideal, like he said, and he says we don't want any gimmies. We want to earn it on the field. That was the direction of the key stakeholder group, the ADs and the coaches, and I feel very comfortable with that. I feel the same way, and I've been very outspoken about it. So that was the comment from Brett Yormark about the 5-11 model, which I like. It doesn't make any sense. Make it make sense. It doesn't. How can you earn it on the field when you're trying to put basically the entire playoff in the boardroom of the college football playoff committee? Because actually what the 5-11 model does is hurt the sport. It does not make the sport better. It certainly hurts the Big 12. There's no doubt about it. But because it hurts the Big 12, it also hurts the sport. Because what would be good for college football is if we continued to have more conferences that were relevant. And if we don't, then we'll get basically three things. One, the entire sport's going to be in the boardroom, and it's going to be committee driven. What fan is desperate to have the college football playoff committee run the sport? What? I feel like Mugatu, like I'm taking crazy pills. Like, is the piano key necktie back in? I don't get it. The committee has been terrible for the sport, as well-meaning as these folks that have been on the committee have been. The subjectivity of that room and the inconsistency of that room has been awful for the sport. We're going to lose non-conference games like we've continued to lose during the course of the year. Why? Because it's better just to have an easier schedule and have a better win-loss record because of the boardroom, right? So in no way is this earning it on the field. In fact, it shocks me that would be the argument to have an 11 at-large model with the 11 basically picks from the committee. I don't understand that at all. You lose out on the play-in weekend like you would have in the model that I talked about last week, and you would have a massive amount, even more so than what we already experience, a massive amount of politicking and propaganda. And by the way, that started in earnest this week in Destin, Florida. You see, for so many years, the SEC, and rightly so, because they were the best conference, they leaned on the fact that they won national championships. So they didn't have to put out a bunch of conference-run propaganda. But because they have not done that, and in particular lost some high-profile games late in the season last year, they went full propaganda mode at their spring meetings. And as Brandon Marcello tweeted out, they handed out a propaganda packet. This is wild. He said the SEC has shared this packet on its football analytics to consider as the college football playoff format dominates conversations. What was that packet? It was a packet that read, title, A Regular Season Gauntlet. When looking at the leading metrics that factor in the strength of schedule, the conclusion across all of them is clear. No other conference has a regular season as grueling as the SEC's. Now, listen, I'm not here to take shots at clearly what was the deepest conference a year ago. I'm not here to do that. I'm not even going to take shots at the SEC, even though it could be easy to do that. They're a league that refuses to play a ninth conference game. So they play 8 conference games. They play cupcakes in November, and then they scream at us that their regular season is so much more grueling. Now, listen, for some, that is the case because in the large conference model, you have imbalances across schedule within conferences. So Florida and Oklahoma played a horrific schedule last year. Georgia played a horrific schedule last year. I'll absolutely give you that. But you can't say that across the board. You just can't. And by the way, is this what we're going to do? Are we going to sit here and just be in full propaganda mode? I, for one, don't want to be in that mode. I would rather us start to define criteria a little bit more clearly for the fan bases, for the players, for the coaches, for everybody involved. Take the sport out of the boardroom. I'm so tired of the boardroom. Can't even handle that. Now, the Big Ten did have their spring media days. It was the week prior here in California. They did not hand out a packet, but I quickly, just with the history of what the SEC has formally argued, I quickly put together a Big Ten propaganda packet, for all of you. And this is what it would look like. Jim Harbaugh with a national championship trophy and Ryan Day with a national championship trophy. So there's the Big Ten's, their analytics in terms of their propaganda packet for the 5-11 model. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.